ships or ship Z? Only you can decide. Find out more at shipzorz.com. Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. It's time for another Thoughts and Coffee here on Let's Talk Supply Chain, and I'm really excited to be with you this morning. I think that this week is going to be great. Last week was crazy. I've got a little bit more breathing room this week, so I'm excited to be here with you and excited to share the stage with Eric Johnson today, who's going to come up in just a minute. I want to give you an overview of what is happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain today. So the episode that we released yesterday is with Ben from Parcel, and they're making a big impact on global health supply chains. Tim Ingram, if you are listening right now, you definitely know what I am talking about. And we did this episode for you because I know you want to talk about healthcare and supply chain. And they're talking about how they are going to be part of the solution for delivering the vaccines. And so I think you should listen to it. It's episode 143, wherever you subscribe to Let's Talk Supply Chain, or you can go to podcasts under letstalksupplychain.com. Next, what do we have next? So I should probably give you a bit of an update on TikTok. Things are going great. We've got a really good community starting over on TikTok. If you want to go and follow us, it's Let's Talk Supply Chain. And we've got some really amazing stuff coming up. We've got some giveaways. Students are taking over. We've got business professionals taking over our TikTok too. So we're super excited with everything that's going on over there. And then what else do we have? Oh, this afternoon, I am hosting a panel discussion in partnership with Procurement Foundry and Apex Logistics. And we're going to be talking about, will your gifts make it to the holidays? It's a big topic right now. I don't know about you guys, but here in Toronto, we're going into second stage or second wave. And, supply chains are going to be disrupted. Last week, I was talking about Kruger here in Canada, talking about how we are going to have a paper towel shortage here. We went to Costco last week. There's no paper towels. So you want to be part of this discussion. We are going to be live on the Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn, as well as some of our other social media channels today at 2 p.m. Eastern. So make sure to check that out. Then we've also got, what else do we got? We finished our mini series with Tealbook last week. Episode 4 is episode 142 under podcasts or wherever you subscribe. That was a great mini series about data, collaboration, supplier diversity. So go and check that out. And then next week, we start a mini series with Ayanna. That's right. It's all about intermodal and what intermodal means to you. Like, what does it actually mean to you as a person, as a supply chain professional? It touches every single part of your life, and you're not going to want to miss this mini series. And I think that's pretty much about it. So I am going to bring up Eric Johnson. Good morning.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
I often think about what intermodal means to me, so that really touched my heart there.
Well, it's going to be a great series. We start off with what exactly intermodal actually is.
No, it's actually a great topic. There's all these phrases and terms in logistics and supply chain that like get said so many times, and people, if you ask 10 people, they'll have 10 different definitions. So it's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We're partnering with Ayanna on that, which is great. And today would have been the first day of LogTech. I'm sorry to bring that up, but I am missing it. Probably, well, maybe not as much as you, but I really wish we were there right now in Vegas. Not going to lie.
Yeah, I'm not going to pour out my coffee on my floor here, but if I could, I would. Yeah, very sad. It was an event that I put together, or with the team here at JOC, obviously, and this was going to be the third year. And it was really like we had a really cool community that was building around it. One of actually the coolest things, if people aren't clear, LogTech is a conference that we held in fall around primarily international logistics and kind of the impact technology was having on it. one of the coolest things for me to see is that I started to see software companies that I don't think knew each other that met at the event. And then like 18
Mhm.
months later, I'm getting press releases from them that they've partnered together on a product or on some sort of alliance. So it's like, it's exactly what we were kind of setting out to do, is build greater value, collective value for the industry. So that kind
Yeah.
of thing was really cool. And one day we'll be able to host it again and kind of pick up the momentum we left. But we're doing 2 webcasts next month, the 22nd and 29th, kind of very short versions of what we were going to talk about in Vegas. So definitely tune in for that. But yeah, it won't be the same. It's not the same. Can't wait to get back to live events.
But that's when you know you've got a good event, right? Is when you get that press release in hand and people are actually doing business from your event. So before we go any further, you probably should tell everybody who you are and what you do.
That's probably a good idea. Probably shouldn't just assume that everyone knows. So I'm Eric Johnson. I am the senior technology editor at the Journal of Commerce. We are a B2B publication covering international logistics and trade. My role is to help primarily cargo owners, but also all of the universe of service providers, whether it's asset-based, non-asset-based, software, consultant, you name it, ports, hard infrastructure. Help them all understand the impact technology is having on their world right now. So that's covering all the different software categories, new technologies that are coming on the scene, incumbent companies that have been kind of the backbone of technology for them for decades. So all of that stuff keeps me busy.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. I mean, I love working with you and Chris and the team over at JOC. We do a lot of great things together. And you guys do a lot of amazing things over there. So over on my personal page, I just want to give a shout out because Tim Ingram is here and I'm pretty sure he listened to that episode already. Keith also says, sounds like there's a second wave of supply chain bullwhip about to happen. Now, before we go into the question of the week and the thoughts and coffee post, tell me about that picture behind you because it looks like it's a painting and I think it's got a little bit of a story behind it.
So yeah, this has become when lockdown happened, I kind of got banished to the basement in my house to record things because it was the only quiet place. But this was a blank wall. So someone told me it was like a passport photo wall, basically. So, which really stings now that we can't even travel anywhere. But so I moved this painting. This actually was painted. My mom was an art history major, and she had a friend who was a painter, and her friend painted this to celebrate my birth. I'm not going to
Oh,
say how many years ago, but a long time ago.
yeah, right. I'm with you on that. I'm not going to tell anybody until it's my birthday in November because then I just don't care.
Yeah. Well, mine's actually next week, so
Oh,
I'm
it's next
definitely
week.
not going to tell anyone.
All right. Well, happy birthday, whatever it is. You're only as old as you feel. Well, and that could be,
That's like
anything.
15. Yeah.
So the question of the week that we're going to be asking tomorrow on all of our social media pages is, what are the different types of jobs in supply chain? Because I think what's happening right now is supply chain management students, they're going through the programs, they're getting out of supply chain. And I'm telling them, listen, guys, you got to try all sorts of things because there's much more to supply chain than you just hear about in school, and so many jobs and so many different pathways that your career could take.
Right.
So what are some of the ones that are at the top of your head?
Boy, I mean, we could spend the rest of the time all the different types of jobs in supply chain. So I think first and foremost, you should think about, okay, like for instance, I write to people who are primarily in a very defined set of roles within a broad end-to-end supply chain, right? Like I'm not necessarily writing to people who are in raw material procurement, and I'm not writing to someone who's like a warehouse workforce manager. I'm writing to people who have to manage the movement of goods between factory to DC or store or sometimes end consumer, right? So just within the component that I write about, there's probably, I mean, there must be 500 job titles, right? I mean, there's logistics manager, there's transportation planner, there are people who specialize only in procurement. There are people who Geez, I mean, literally, this
I know
it's
there's
really
so
boring if I just provide you a list. I think the most interesting things are the roles where, obviously, I'm going to say this, I'm biased, the roles where someone has a little bit of freedom to explore how tech can
Mhm.
can change a process, and also has the sort of authority or liberty to invest in something,
Yeah.
because things are so easy to try out now relative to the past. I won't say it's easy, but it's easier.
Mhm.
There's a little bit less risk attached. So, I mean, if I was coming out of school right now and I did a supply chain or logistics degree, I would be looking for a role that enabled me to take um, some kind of core process and figure out where the efficiency from the software industry is coming and how to marry that, because you're going to get really famous and really quick within your organization if you can fundamentally change something. If you
Yeah.
just come in and you're like, oh, filling out, bill of lading information for 8 hours a day, like, you know, does that role even exist anymore? I don't know.
I think it does in some respects, but I'm really interested to see how everybody participates and what their comments are going to be, because I think it's going to be eye-opening, not only for the next generation of supply chain, maybe people that are already in supply chain that didn't know some of these roles existed. And so I think it's going to be a fun discussion tomorrow. So I hope everybody's going to join us. Memory is joining us, and she says, "My surprise to discover there's a field in supply chain dedicated to contingency business interruption. Didn't realize risk management was so broad." I would absolutely agree with you. I had a conversation about risk management last week at a conference, and three different people did three different presentations on three different sides of risk management, which was crazy. And then I think this might be Andrew Johnson, but he says, "Eric, my long lost brother in supply chain." I don't know why it says LinkedIn user, but I believe it's Andrew Johnson, because Memory just said, "Hello, Andrew Johnson." Thank you, Memory, for
Well,
helping me with
the last name makes it might be a clue.
that.
No, look at, I mean, that's a perfect example of business continuity. Look at what happened to CMA CGM this week, right? Like,
Oh, I know.
so, if you're working at CMA or if you are a customer of theirs or you're a logistics provider in between, you
Mhm.
you just got a crash course in how to keep the wheels rolling while things aren't operating as normal. So yeah, there's
Yeah,
tons. Data scientists, like,
yeah, I
I am
know.
pretty sure every company over the next 10 years is going to be hiring data scientists, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
that's, if you're a supply chain data scientist, might seem very niche, but you're probably not going to be short of jobs.
No, exactly, because that's what everybody's looking for right now, is people with the supply chain knowledge, but also that tech experience. Over on my personal page, Tim says, "My oldest son is in supply chain for Ace Hardware, and my youngest wants to go into the Air Force as a materials management specialist in healthcare, which is also still part of supply chain." So I think this is going to be a great discussion. And then I just want to talk to Shimon. She says, "Good morning. Just today, I was thinking about diversity in the supply chain field. And I want to let you know that we are starting a new diversity series coming out in just 2 weeks. And we're going to be covering all of these topics, because she's talking about terminology, categorization, and we are going to be covering all of that. So stay tuned. That show is going to be called Blended. And so you're not going to want to miss that. All right. So over to my thoughts and coffee. Well, people, I don't know if you saw this post yesterday, but the reason why I called it reality or not reality was because last week was not my finest moment in the Q&A section of a panel discussion I was a part of. And I just wanted to bring it to the forefront, because I think it's important that we acknowledge these things. I think it's important that we laugh at ourselves. And so I'm just going to give you the quick rundown. I was on screen. I minimized my screen, so I didn't think everybody could see everything. I don't know. For some reason, I must have been really tired. And I had these two hairs like sticking up, like it was like alfalfa. And I was so far up on the screen that that's all I could see. And so the whole time that I was answering the questions, I kept going like this to try to comb it down. And I think I even reached for some water to be like, hmm. So it was not my finest moment, but I just wanted to put it out there and say, hey guys, this happened to me. It happens to everybody. Let's laugh at ourselves. What did you think of this, Eric?
Well, my first thought was I would love to have the problem of hair sticking straight up on end. So that's the first issue.
That's so
Luckily, yeah, I
funny.
mean, luckily I don't have to worry about my appearance too much anymore. But no, I think anyone who's been on kind of the high wire of doing public speaking, and Lord knows we're all doing more of that these days.
Uh-huh.
It's really hard to connect with people the same way online than you do in person. So those types of things, you're kind of you don't even realize till after it's recorded and is live that you had something going on. So
Oh,
it's like the live without a net kind
man.
of
Uh-huh.
aspect of this. If you can't not take yourself seriously, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? Like you have to not take things too seriously. And I think it helps you kind of convey what you're trying to say better, but it also disarms the audience when you're able to like laugh at yourself, right? Because
Well,
there's nothing worse than being sitting and listening to someone who takes themselves super seriously. That's like it's I'm not going to listen to almost anything they say when I know that they're taking themselves too seriously.
yeah. Well, the worst part is that in the moment, I I honestly thought nobody could see me. And then when I woke up the next morning, I don't know why, but my first thought was to that. Oh no, it was because I saw a picture on LinkedIn and I was like, "Oh, that's what everybody saw. Oh crap." So anybody who was watching last week and saw me going like this, I was super obsessed with some alfalfa hair going on and I was just trying to tame it. And I thought I would share it with everybody and thought it would give us a good laugh. So over on my personal LinkedIn page, Gary and Andrea, just want to say hi and good morning. We are just about to get into our hot topics for today. And if anybody knows JOC, they know TPM, and it's one of their biggest, or if not the biggest, show that you guys have every single year in March. It's where business gets done, contracts get signed, and unfortunately, you had to cancel it last year. So I think the question on everybody's mind is, what are we doing for 2021?
Yeah. So as Sarah mentioned, we literally canceled it as like at the last minute. I don't know if we could have canceled it any close. We were trying our best to put it on, and things kind of spiraled out of control on us the week leading up to it. In the end, it ended up 100% being the right decision by our our executive team at the highest level of our company. But
Yeah.
so your question is about 2021, and we've been in kind of an interesting situation of trying to see how this is going to play out and whether it was viable to do something in person next year. And obviously that was contingent on a whole bunch of things, not least of which is even if there was sort of some resolution to COVID, would people feel comfortable traveling again, and B, would they have the ability to do that? Would their companies allow them and
Yeah.
provide budget for them to travel? So
So many
we
questions.
yeah, we always knew a full-fledged TPM in person was unlikely for 2021. We were sort of going with the kind of temporary thinking that there might be some sort of hybrid event that was possible, but I think it's looking more and more likely that it's going to be for the most part virtual, if not completely virtual. That hasn't been fully announced yet, but it's like just trending that way at this point. And we on the back end, the team that puts it together, we've been kind of going with that assumption that it was going to be predominantly, if not totally virtual for a long time.
Right.
We've been
Yeah.
planning along those lines. And so we're just going to put on the best virtual event that we possibly can, that hopefully the attendees have been to. Because you're right, TPM was more than just sessions that people showed up to. It was where shippers on the Trans-Pacific basically negotiated annual contracts with their service providers. So it is I don't want to speak of it in the past tense. It is the place where that stuff got done. So we're really trying to we're trying to fit that part of it into a virtual world. The content stuff is a little easier, obviously, than the networking and the business that gets done. We're not probably going to be able to emulate the kind of extemporaneous meetings that you might have with people that you hadn't been scheduled to meet with. And that happens a lot. We're not going to be able to emulate the parties that go on till 2 a.m. But that probably just means people will be a little more clear-headed for the morning session.
Well, hopefully, hopefully, I think that it's still going to be a great event virtually, no matter what. Hopefully you guys put some sort of element of one-on-one meetings in there, because the virtual conferences that I've been to and some of the conversations that I've had, that has been super important and really has made or break an event. Yeah. So the one-on-one meetings, totally crucial, but I think it's going to be great. And I am totally looking forward to it because I think I'm going to be involved. So, but that's TBD, because obviously those discussions haven't been done yet. So let's move on to our next subject, which is women and venture capital. So we've got a lot more women that are coming into supply chain from an entrepreneurial perspective, whether that's technology. Mostly from a technology perspective, I would presume. And it hasn't, for me, in my experience, it hasn't been, easy. I don't think it's easy for anybody, but I wanted to talk to you because you talk to a lot of VCs. You and I had a conversation a little while ago about this. One of the articles that I pulled up here was why women make better venture capitalists. So I want to talk about, women VCs, entrepreneurs, and then I want to talk a little bit about success stories that we've sort of heard about as well. So what is your take on all of this?
So let me go back before we get into the VC part of this. I want to go back to something you said in terms of where we're seeing more and better representation for women in the industry. So there's one area that has been where actually women have a larger share of roles than men, and they have for a long time, and that's on the customs compliance side. For whatever reason, and I think there's people who have theories about this, but for whatever reason, women have a outsized share of roles, especially, ones with real responsibility in kind of trade compliance and regulatory kind of compliance roles. Yeah. That's been the case for a long time. An interesting thing that I'm seeing is a lot of people who are getting into roles like international director of transportation or international logistics manager at BCOs, at the shippers. I see so many women in those roles, which is super, super encouraging. I wouldn't suggest that it's anywhere near 50%, but right. I would say of new people that I'm introduced to, at least 50% are women, if not more. So that's a positive sign.
That is a positive sign, yeah.
In terms of VC and tech, I actually think there are way fewer female founders in logistics tech than male. Yeah. And that's an obvious statement. What I was trying to say was the proportion of women founders in logistics tech is lower than the proportion of people in executive roles not in tech.
Right.
So in other words, I think it's underrepresented in tech, actually, at this point.
Yeah. Well, and I also think from a VC standpoint, we're also underrepresented there.
Oh, so, probably even more.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up and sort of shed light on this article is because we do need more women in venture capital. Most VCs invest in the founder. You and I have had that discussion before. Yeah. And who they resonate with and who they see at the table. And, in order for women to get ahead from an entrepreneurial standpoint, especially in the tech world, we need to see more women from a VC standpoint that understands supply chain, that understands logistics, that can really hone in on this innovation and resonate with the female founders and what they're trying to do. And so I think from there, we should talk about a couple of success stories. So one of the ones that, obviously, we just did a mini series with Tealbook, but I'm super, super impressed with Stephanie, who owns Tealbook, and what she's done in raising funds. And so this is a success story dear to my heart. I think that she's doing some amazing things over here on Tealbook. And just in January, she was able to close a round of $5 million. And so just want to say kudos to her and just bring up some success stories and talk about these female founders in supply chain and supply chain tech that are doing some amazing things, and the VCs that are backing them, because I think that that's really important as well, especially in this niche business, right? There's a lot of talk about supply chain tech. There's a lot of VCs that want to support supply chain tech and get into supply chain tech, but there's not enough for the surrounding, female founders and stuff like that. So just wanted to give a shout out. I don't know if you know any more success stories that you want to share.
Well, one, we both know Jenna Brown at Shipamax.
Yes, Jenna too.
They got a Series A earlier this year, I think 7 million. But the fact that I have to like sort of rack my brain to think of too many of any other sort of female logistics tech founders who have gotten sizable rounds is kind of the problem. And it's like a whole ecosystem is kind of an overused word, but it is an ecosystem problem. And I don't really know why it is that there are not more women who specialize in supply chain or logistics technology from the VC side. There's definitely a lot of amazing women in VC, big picture broadly across the board, but I just don't, I would think by now I would have been introduced to like a dozen or 2 dozen, or at least 5, like venture capitalists, female venture capitalists who seek me out, know the space, want, or I seek them out. And it really has not happened. And maybe I'm missing some corner of the world that I should be looking at, but honestly, I'm not. There's no shortage of like inbound requests from investors to talk and pick my brain about things. I'm not trying to like humble brag or anything, but they're all males. They're all males. So I don't know what to do to get more women to sort of specialize in this area, or to give opportunities to women who understand this space to get them on the investor side. But it would be I think it would be a huge benefit. Yeah, I'll share one interesting story that's very related to this. I'm not going to say which technology company, because I don't have the freedom to say which technology company it is, but there's a logistics tech company that I've written about a fair amount over the last few years that told me specifically, this is male founders, but they told me specifically that they got big reason why they're successful, and the reason that they've gotten buy-in from big customers is because they've sought out women to be like the advocate within their organization to adopt their technology. He said they get nowhere when they go to men. They've had all success whenever they find a leader who has the authority to invest in them.
Interesting.
As a software, when it's a woman. So that shows there's like this like latent demand for that kind of approach.
Well, and I think, we talk about how do we make the changes, and I think it's one step at a time. And I think it's conversations like this that we can have, in the community, and talk about what you're hearing, what I'm hearing, what I'm experiencing, what you're experiencing, what you're hearing from other founders, and what sort of those gaps are and how we can fill them. And so I think just by having this conversation, having you on the show and talking authentically about what that experience is like and what you've been speaking to other people about in the community is really all we can do. Other than, sparking those conversations and talking to more people and encouraging women to go into VC, especially if you've got supply chain knowledge, because I think it's super, super important right now. So we don't have a lot of time left, but I know we want to talk about trends, and we do want to talk about your log tech letter, because I love this newsletter that comes out every week. I think, you've got some amazing insights on supply chain tech. So just quickly, what do you think are some of the top 3 trends going into 2021 from a supply chain tech standpoint?
So I guess I would say automation. like RPA type automation seems like it's going from, whiteboard stuff to actually being implemented, both especially on the LSP side, but even, I think we'll start to see it trickle into BCOs. I'm interested to see how automation and like sort of basic automation. I don't mean the automation itself is basic, but replacing basic kind of processes or job roles, how that fits in with a world where maybe companies are being told, in 2021 budget cycles that we need to manage costs and we need to not hire people or we need to maybe cut people. It's not a nice thing to hear or to talk about, but it's the reality. And I think everybody's going to have to figure out where like automation technology that takes away, kind of roles that are not value add to an organization, what that means. The other one I just think marketplaces, I wrote about this last week, so this is top of mind.
You did.
I think marketplaces are maturing now. And I think there was a sense before that like logistics can never be like Expedia. It can never be like buying a barbecue on Amazon. It's more nuanced than that. But what's happened is you have all these different types of marketplaces where people can procure, logistics services or just basic capacity if that's all you want. And so it's really like, I've sort of described this as like, you used to go to a restaurant and there used to be 3 things on the menu. And now you basically have like a Vegas buffet in front of you, and it's like, there's just so many options. And now the trick is not, how do I deal with a limited number of options? Now the trick is, how do I educate myself to know which option is best for me?
Yeah. And collaboration too. So AJ is going to put the link in the comments to Eric's log tech letter. So if you wanted to subscribe, you can. We are a little bit over time, but I want to answer Rebecca's question. Eric, can you talk about CMA situation? What are you hearing? I know we kind of touched on it at the beginning, but let's talk about it because I think it's on everybody's minds right now.
Yeah, it's still ongoing from what we're hearing. We're in touch with a lot of forwarders, especially right now, and they're saying systems are still down. I think the interesting thing yesterday was that I probably reached out to 20 different people on the software and forwarding side, and everybody was experiencing different disruptions. So some people were saying, I have access to the schedules, but I can't book. Or vice versa. Sorry, I don't have access to the schedules, but I can get a booking confirmation. Others were saying everything was down. Some people were saying that my API with CMA is up, but others were saying I can only call customer service to deal with them. So I think it speaks to more the varied nature of forwarders and software providers' own systems than it does to what CMA's outage was, because it's like how you interacted with them and what information you depended on them for is probably going to determine what your how their issue affected you. So it's still ongoing. They've not been very communicative since middle of yesterday about what's going on, just saying that they're trying to resolve the situation. But I will say it hasn't been totally disruptive in the way that like the Maersk attack was 3 years ago, where, like literally they were struggling to do business as usual for weeks and weeks. Like, I think people have figured out workarounds. I think their systems now are set up in a way that the problems and I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but, from what people tell me, the systems are being set up in a way that, servers can be isolated and it doesn't affect all the systems that companies rely on. So.
Interesting. And, if that was, in the past, it would have been different, right? Because now we're learning to isolate those servers so that we can go on business as usual. So one more quick memory. Would college university incubators be a great place to drive innovation that is exclusively reserved to young women who are challenging change technology initiatives? Yes and no. I just from my experience, I've looked at different incubators. There's not as much money there from an accelerator standpoint for the the programs for women that I've looked at that really make a lot of sense. From a technology perspective, it takes a lot of money just to launch and have like a working product that you can have people validate and actually use and things like that. And so I think that that's a great idea. I think that it's a great start. I think we definitely need to foster young women and what they're looking to do from an innovative standpoint. And I think that's a great place to start. I think we need to get better at our accelerator programs, though, to be perfectly honest. That's just from my opinion, and maybe there is one out there that I don't know about, that if you guys want to let me know, that would be great. But anyways, we've gone about 5 minutes over, but it was great because we were able to answer, some questions from the audience. I really appreciate you being here today. Any final comments?
No, Sarah, we've worked together a lot over the years, but it's awesome the community you've created. Like, it's amazing how much you pull together across formats and channels, and like your existence and participation in the industry is, I don't think people even fully realize how valuable it is, even if they're not like consciously recognizing it. I think it's amazing what you've built.
Oh, thank you, Eric, very, very much. I really appreciate that. I mean, it's funny because I'm at home most of the time with my 2 dogs, and I'm just sort of putting stuff out there and trying to be part of the community and creating some value, right? That's what this is all about, and bringing everybody together. So, anyways, I hope you all have an amazing week ahead, and I'm going to see you this afternoon for a panel discussion with Apex Logistics. Otherwise, I will see you next Tuesday for Thoughts and Coffee. Thanks again, Eric, for being part of the show.
Thanks for